Welcome to part 3 of the admin settings, where we're going to discuss some support tables. So first, let's talk about what support tables are. They're a way for you to organize a lot of information in tables. So some of the tables that are available allow you to organize your appraisal companies, your banks, brokers, condition schedules and conditions, counties, default charges, which are your fees, fee schedules, insurance companies, investors, margin and pricing adjustments, offices, your program information, purchase adjustments, service providers, suspense and denial reasons, even title held descriptions, title and escrow companies, trailing docs, and of course user information, which is where you're going to actually store all of your information about your individual ProLender users. So let's go through some of these support tables, and once we go through a couple of them, you'll kind of get the idea of how all of them work and how you should be able to add to them and update them as information changes. So let's take a look at our appraisal companies. So I'm just going to look at my list of appraisal companies that I already have in the system. Now, as a new user, when you come in here, you won't see any available. All you have to do is go to Actions and click on Insert New Record, and that will add an appraisal company to your table. I'm going to go ahead and open up one that I already have entered. So here you'll be able to keep track of the actual appraiser, their company name, their contact information, and you'll also be able to keep track of their status. Now you'll want to make sure that you select the status, because if this appraiser is not approved, then you'll want to select a different option. Now this is important because when your user selects them on a loan, you may have a business rule that is set up that will check to make sure that this appraiser is approved to do business. So you'll want to make sure that you do complete all of this information in order for those business rules to trigger when they're supposed to. We also allow you to store additional information like their license number when it expires. Again, we have business rules that will check to make sure that that information is current and that's been entered. So all of your support tables work the same way, just like your banks. Here we have a list of banks. If you need to add additional banks, you'll go to Actions and Insert New Record. Let's take a look at one of these that we have entered. Notice that I have two names for this bank. I have a short name and a long name. So the short name is how it's going to appear to your user in the system. The long name is how it's going to appear on any documentation. You can store the address, all of their account information, or their bank type, which is going to be really important. You want to make sure that you designate what type of bank this is. Also, we have a place for the line limit. So if this is a warehouse line, you want to enter that line limit, because in the funding info screen, your user will have the ability to view all of their warehouse lines, see how much they've used, what's still pending, and how much is left. So it's really going to help your funder to determine, which line they're going to fund this loan on. So in order to do that, we need to know what your line limit is. You'll also want to enter in their MERS ID and client IDs, and of course all of their other contact information. Now for your brokers, again, you'll be able to go up to Actions, Insert a New Record. Let's take a look at one of our brokers. Now there's a lot of information in here. The first tab is all of their contact information. And again, you have their name and a DBA. So if they are going by ABC Broker, but they're also doing business as something else, you want to make sure that you enter both of those in there. Again, we have all of their contact information. You can select what loan types they're doing, what the broker type is. If you go to their Approval Info tab, you'll be able to, again, give it a status. So if it's restricted or maybe it's approved, so you want to make sure that you enter that information. Again, there's a lot of different information in here where you can assign it to one of your loan officers. You can also assign it to one of your offices. So again, you'll want to complete all of this information, all of their lender IDs, their approval dates. All of that information is going to be important because there are business rules that will check to make sure that they are still licensed where they should be. Speaking of licenses, we do have a tab for approval states. So if the broker is approved in multiple states, you'll want to make sure that you enter that information in this tab. For example, we have information entered for California. By clicking on California in the list, you'll want to enter in all of California's licensing information. If they're also licensed in maybe Arizona, you'll click on Arizona as well and complete those fields. So make sure that when you have your broker, you enter in all of their state licensing information for all of the individual states that they're licensed in. We also have a tab for the broker's loan reps. So you'll want to make sure that all of their loan reps have been entered in here so that they can be selected on the loan. To add a broker rep, you'll want to go to Actions and insert a new LO rep. You'll be able to see them in the grid here and complete all of their information. Now, if you're going to give them access to WebLender, the individual broker's rep, you'll want to enter in the web password and select the access level as well. Now, the last tab is for WebLender, and this is for the actual broker. So if you're assigning the broker a login and password to WebLender, you'll want to enter that here. Again, you'll select the access level and whether or not you're going to allow pricing. So let's go down to our conditions. So conditions allow your users to easily select conditions and apply them to their loan. So here is where you'll default those conditions. So again, you can go up to Actions, click on Insert New Record. I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of these. So here you can select the type of condition. So where is it going to appear in the system? Is that closing, prior to docs, prior to funding, prior to underwriting, or maybe it's prior to purchase? You'll also want to select the Assign To. And then if it's a prior to purchase condition, you'll be able to select the category. So once you select the type and the Assign To, you want to enter in your condition. Now keep in mind this is just a basic condition. Your users will have the ability to change it if they need to on the loan. So I wouldn't make it very specific if there's a place where they need to enter in a dollar amount or something like that. Just make it specific or very generic so that they can go in and modify it as needed. You can also select it if it is going to be a standard default condition as well. Now next, let's talk about condition schedules. Now this allows you to group conditions based on any number of factors. So here we have some designated for conventional loans or maybe closing doc conditions. So what happens is your user can select this condition schedule and it automatically applies all of the conditions in that schedule to their loan. So let's take a look at one of these schedules. So here at the top I have a list of all of my available conditions. I can highlight them and use the arrow buttons to move them down here at the bottom. So for example, if I have this condition schedule for conventional loans, I want to go through and pick out all of the conditions that apply to conventional loans. So my users, all they have to do is click on the conventional loans condition schedule, and it'll automatically apply those to the loan. Now let's talk about counties. So here's the counties table. And we do have a nice feature. If you go to Actions, you can click on Update County Limits. And so when you do that, when you go ahead and open up one of these county FHA loan limits will automatically update for you. So keep that in mind that this is a table that you want to make sure that this information has been updated. Next, we have our default charges, and these are all of your fees on your loan. Again, you would go up to Actions and click on Insert New Record, but let's take a look at one of these. Here I have my appraisal fee, and this one happens to be hard-coded, and you'll know that because the description is not editable. It's grayed out, and then the text is in blue. If it were just a miscellaneous fee, then I'd be able to change that description. And you can edit the HUD number. You can select a good faith estimate category. You can also enter a default amount. So if you have a fee that is always, $395 or whatever it happens to be, you can enter in that default. You can also enter in the default points, select the fee type, and even enter an accounting code. So if you have an accountant who is pulling information out of ProLender, they can use this information. Same with the cost and the cost percentage. You can also default the paid to and paid by. so that when your user selects this miscellaneous fee on a loan, it's automatically going to populate for them. You can also determine whether or not this fee is typically included in a disbursement, or maybe if you might withhold it. So your user doesn't have to select that manually on each loan. Some of the other ones, you can distinguish whether or not this is an APR fee, Section 32, and then, in the event that you're never going to see again, you can always disable it. Now, let's take a look at insurance companies. So the insurance companies works a lot like your appraisal companies. Again, you would just go to Actions and insert a new record. And all you want to do is enter the short name, the long name, the address, phone number. So you have all the contact information in here. Now your users, all they have to do when they're working on their loan is select the insurance company from the list, and this information is going to automatically populate for them. Now your investors, again, you can go to Actions, insert additional investors. So let's take a look. Here we have, again, their short name, long name, their contact information. The additional info tab is going to allow you to enter in the investor ID, the MERS ID, the seller ID, and also default the number of days that their interest is based on. So depending on the investor, it may be 360. Some may use 365. We also have a place for alternate addresses. So if you have a large investor, they may have different offices for different things. So you may have one office for accounting, another one for to send your last payee payments to, things like that. So you want to make sure that you have entered in the individual addresses for all of these different departments. Now, some of them may be the same, and that's fine, but you'll want to make sure that those do get completed. There are forms in ProLender that we generate, and that we will pull the appropriate address for that item. So next, let's take a look at the margin pricing. So these are all of your pricing adjustments. So again, you can go to Actions and add additional adjustments. So let's take a look at our lock extension. So here we've entered a description. Now this description is going to show up in the secondary department when your user is entering adjustments. So they'll be able to choose this adjustment from the list. Now if you have investors that always have a standard price for adjustments, you can select the investor in the list, enter that pricing adjustment, whether it's on the buy side, sell side, rate, margin, or life cap. And then when your user selects this adjustment from the list, it's automatically going to apply that percentage as an adjustment. Now, if they change all the time or you're not sure what they are, you can leave them blank, but you will want to make sure that this description has been entered so your user can select it from the list. Next, let's talk about offices. Now, this is where you'll want to make sure that you list all of your individual offices. Again, you can go to Actions and add additional ones, but let's take a look at our corporate office. So here we've given it a short name. So this is how we're going to recognize it in ProLender. The long name would be the company name. So if you have offices that are going by a different name, you can enter that information there. This is what's going to appear at the top of any reports or forms that they print out. So you want to make sure that the long name is actually your company name. Again, address, contact information, status, whether or not it's a regional office or not. You'll also have a section for additional info. So if you are assigning logins to WebLender, this is where you'll assign the web login, password, access level, and again, allow pricing. Now you can also assign individual logos to your offices. So if that's the case, you'll want to enter in the logo file name here, and then you'll also need to save a copy of it in your ProLender folder, or the reports folder within your ProLender folder on your server. If you have any questions about that, contact our support department and they will make sure that your logo is formatted correctly. So again, we have some more IDs that you'll want to make sure that you enter. We do have a place for approval state information. So it works just like your broker. So if you double click on a state, you want to enter in all of the licensing information for that state. Interfaces. If you have interface login and passwords for different offices, this is where you would do it. So you'll find your interface in the list, and then you'll enter in their login and password or any additional information that is required. So that concludes part 3 of the admin settings training.